who would win in a fight between Superman and Godzilla? The obvious answer for most people is Superman, because he is faster than Godzilla and could simply fly away if things were to get bad. But that may not be the case, because some say Godzilla's radioactive blood can harm Superman. This theory claims that even if Superman manages to avoid Godzilla's atomic breath, it doesn't mean he'd come out unscathed. And there's one very specific reason why. In this video, we look at how Superman might actually stand absolutely no chance against the king of the monsters. How do you think, will Superman survive a fight with Godzilla? Or will he get taken down by the atomic breath? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome matchups. How does Superman normally deal with powerful opponents? He freezes them with his super breath. This has worked on opponents such as Doomsday and even the Hulk, so it seems likely he would try this tactic against Godzilla. But when we consider how well this might work, it seems like it's an almost useless ability against the king of the monsters. We saw during Godzilla vs Kong in 2021 that Godzilla was able to shake off being frozen solid. As the oxygen in his body started to melt the ice, Godzilla came back to life and was ready to battle once again. Considering that Superman's super breath would have a similar effect, it's reasonable to assume that this wouldn't stop Godzilla for long. So what else could Superman use against him? Well, one thing Superman has learned over the years is that while he might be able to take care of most normal Kaigas, Godzilla is far from normal. In the comics, we've seen Superman go toe-to-toe with Godzilla, and one of the main tactics he uses is to stay airborne. Staying up in the air means Superman can avoid the majority of Godzilla's attacks, which is exactly what we see in the first ever meeting between the two titans. But the story from the comics also shows us that this is unnecessarily a good plan either, because it left Superman open to Godzilla's strongest attack, the atomic breath. While Superman was dodging Godzilla's other attacks, he wasn't able to get out of the way of the atomic breath. And while he did manage to cover his eyes and ears so that the explosion didn't damage them, it still hit him square in the chest. This really goes to show just how dangerous Godzilla's atomic breath truly is, and it would seem that Superman would have no choice but to put everything on the line if he wanted to stop it. What would happen if Superman used all his strength against Godzilla's atomic breath? One of the biggest mistakes Superman has made in his career was trying to hold back an opponent who would eventually become a god among men. When Darkseid invaded Earth, Superman tried to hold back the godlike villain, but this ended up giving Darkseid time to fully power up his Omega Beam, and the next thing Superman knew, he was being sent through time and space. This is something Superman never forgot and vowed never to repeat. So if Superman found himself going up against Godzilla, you better believe he wouldn't hold back. Instead, he would go all out right from the start. What if Superman used all his strength and speed against Godzilla from the very beginning? Well, for starters, he could throw some massive punches. Superman's strength is really unmatched in the DC universe. While characters like Wonder Woman and Batman are incredibly strong themselves, Superman towers above them all. In fact, he's been known to destroy planets with his bare hands. This means that if Superman were to throw everything he's got behind a punch, it would definitely send Godzilla flying. But what about the king of the monsters' incredible durability? Godzilla's skin is so tough that military weapons can't even penetrate it. The only weapons that have ever truly harmed the king of the monsters have been those that were created specifically to counter him. So what chance does Superman have of actually harming the beast? It turns out that the kryptonite in Superman's blood might just be the key to taking Godzilla down. In a what-if story from the comics, we see that after Superman is injured by a piece of kryptonite, he ends up merging with the creature known as Doomsday. This creates a new being with the powers of both Superman and Doomsday. Together, they become incredibly powerful, with the being gaining the ability to absorb and redirect energy blasts. It's during this fight that the being uses its abilities to absorb Godzilla's atomic breath. If Superman had this ability, it could mean that not only would he be safe from the atomic breath, but he could actually use it against the king of the monsters. Not only that, but Superman has shown in the past that he is able to fly through the air at incredible speeds. If he were to fly directly into Godzilla's mouth as the monster breathed its atomic fire, it's possible that Superman could come out unscathed. But there is a catch. Flying into the mouth of a radioactive creature could leave Superman with a radioactive infection, and we've already seen that kryptonite can weaken Superman significantly. If Godzilla's radioactive particles were to infect Superman's body, it could make him weak enough for the king of the monsters to finish him off. And while Superman has overcome kryptonite poisoning before, there's no guarantee he'd be able to do it again. Not only that, but kryptonite poisoning makes Superman incredibly sick, sometimes even to the point where he blacks out and passes out. If this happened during the fight with Godzilla, it would mean the end for the Man of Steel. It is important to remember that Godzilla is capable of killing opponents who are as strong as he is. After all, this guy takes out Titans on a regular basis. So if Superman were to get sick during the fight, Godzilla would likely take the opportunity to end the fight once and for all. The fact is, even though Superman is stronger than Godzilla, the Man of Steel has weaknesses that the King of the Monsters can exploit. One of the biggest weaknesses Superman has is magic, and there is always the chance that Godzilla could turn the tide of the battle by using magic against the Kryptonian. We've seen that Superman struggles against dark magic users such as Cersei, so if Godzilla were to use a spell to weaken the Man of Steel, it could give him the edge he needs to win the fight. On top of this, we've also seen that sound frequencies can also harm Superman. If Godzilla were to somehow produce a sound that's painful to Superman, it could also allow the King of the Monsters to get the upper hand. But what if Superman manages to keep his cool and think strategically? It's hard to imagine Superman losing a fight, especially if he has time to prepare beforehand. Unlike in the comic book story where Superman was taken by surprise when he first encountered Godzilla, the Man of Steel would likely know a few things about the King of the Monsters before they ever met. So what if Superman studied Godzilla beforehand and went into the fight knowing exactly what he was up against? We've seen in the past that Superman is willing to take risks in order to protect the Earth. In Superman v. Shag, we saw that Superman was willing to sacrifice himself in order to save the world from destruction. But what if the stakes were even higher? What if Superman was up against a monster that literally represented the destructive forces of nature itself? Superman would know that he had to do whatever it took to stop Godzilla and save the planet. So what if he decided to take a page out of King Kong's book and make Godzilla fight against his own nature? In the 2021 Godzilla vs. the humans were able to use Kang's connection with nature to make the Titans fight on their side. They created a device that made the Earth rumble like an earthquake, which caused both Kang and Godzilla to get angry and start fighting each other. Eventually, the humans were able to use this device to lure Godzilla near a volcano, and since the monster represents the atomic forces of nature, it was drawn to the volcano and ultimately calmed down. If Superman were to face off against Godzilla and knew all this beforehand, he could potentially do the same thing. With a little bit of planning, Superman could create an environment that's naturally dangerous to Godzilla. Since Godzilla is a force of nature, it stands to reason that the natural forces of our world would also be able to affect him. Using his superintelligence, Superman could develop a plan to lure Godzilla into a trap. There are many ways that Superman could defeat Godzilla, but the best way would probably be to find some way to manipulate the monster's connection with the natural world. Would Superman really risk his own life to save the world from Godzilla? What do you think? Leave it in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing content.